It is now time to taxi out and take off. It is time for Daniel in the Deacon's Den.
Good morning, Deacon Dan Brahier.
Good morning, Ron. Good morning, Dave. You know, I was just sitting here wondering how many musicians you insulted this morning with clarinets, oboes, saxophone. You got them all.
Yeah, I know.
Our intention is
I'm going to check my tires when I go
every
to the parking
listener out
lot,
there
yeah.
at some point. So yeah.
That's right. Now, you were just back from a great trip. You went to Spain, right?
Yes, we did. My wife and I went to Spain on a pilgrimage, and we were gone for almost 2 weeks. What an amazing experience! It kind of, you know, the deacons in our diocese, and really deacons anywhere, have some kind of rules in terms of continuing formation, you know, that we get. And so, like in our diocese, every deacon is required to have an average of 12 hours per year of continuing formation. So you can do, you know, workshop, conferences, classes, seminars, that kind of thing. But one of the things that counts, and probably is at the top of the list, is to do a pilgrimage, to go someplace where that's, you know, that really deepens your faith. And my wife and I have been talking about going to Spain for a long, long time. I taught in England for a semester a few years ago, and Spain was one of the countries we just never got to. And so we went over there to hike the Camino de Santiago, which is, you know, the way of St. James. Have you guys, either of you, ever done that before?
No, but have heard so much about it from all the folks that have gone. And the thing about anybody doing the Camino, they come back and that's all they talk about for a very long time. I mean, it's obviously fabulous.
Yeah, I know some people that's done it 2-3 times.
Yeah, exactly. And you can do it multiple times. There are lots of different routes, and that was one of the things that we started to learn as we dug into it. We didn't go as part of a group or anything. Ann and I just arranged it on our own. But there are so many, you know, there are routes that go from Ireland, England, Portugal, France, within Spain. Some of the routes are pretty short. Some of them are a lot longer. You can hike anywhere from, you know, do the last 20 miles of a route into Santiago, and you can do a 300-400 mile route from France, you know. So there's all kinds of different ways you can do it. So it's not just like one pilgrimage route. So what a lot of people do is go back multiple times, and every time they go, they hike a different route, you know. But eventually, all of them will end up in Santiago. And so that's kind of the, you know, the end game. But what they do over there is when you hike the Camino, if you want to get an official certification of having done the pilgrimage, you have to walk a minimum of 100 kilometers, which is about 63 miles. So, you know, you choose a route that is at least that long if you want to do that, because what happens is they give you this it's called a credential or like a passport. And as you hike, every day you go into towns, and if you're at a church or a restaurant or a hotel, they will stamp it, and you have to get at least 2 stamps a day, so that when you get to Santiago, you go to the office there and you present the credentials to them, and they go through it and make sure that you actually visited all these different places, and then you get a official certificate, which is really neat. But these routes, this pilgrimage, has been done for 1,000 years. So, you know, this isn't something that was invented in 1960. You know, it's been a long, long time. So we did what is called the English route, and it starts from a place called Ferrol, which is in the northwest part of the country, right on the ocean, and it's about a 75-mile walk, and you go through it about 8,000 feet of elevation gain, and it takes we did 5 days. Some people do it in 6 days. So you're walking anywhere from 12 to 18 miles a day, and it's a lot. It's you don't really look at it so much as a hike as just a pilgrimage walk. Every day you're on the road all day long, walking, and you walk through towns. You go through urban areas. You walk along beaches, the woods, out in farmlands, along roads, and the trail is very clearly marked. It has a shell. The symbol of the Camino is the shell. And if you think about like a clam shell, they have like little lines on them that all go down toward the bottom, if you will. And that's why that's the symbol, because there are lots of different routes, but all of them lead to the same place. They all end up in Santiago. So as you're walking along, anytime that you go through a town that has a church that's open, you can go in and pray there. There's so many cute little Spanish-style churches, in all these towns. I guess they'd be Spanish-style because we're in Spain, right?
Yeah. It was surprising to see how many of the churches was Spanish-style.
Yeah. Right, it'd be a little different. It was kind of like Mexican style or American stuff. And the other thing we found fascinating, because we discovered there, not surprisingly, the siesta culture is real. So, the entire country basically shuts down from about 2 until 5 o'clock. And everybody goes and takes a nap, and then things happen in the evening. So it's crazy because a lot of the churches, as well as the stores in towns, will say, their hours are like from 11 to 1 or 10 to 1:30, and then from 5 to 9. Yeah. But there's nothing open in the afternoon. So the masses there are all held in the evening, somewhere between like 5:30 and 8:30. So when you go into a town, you can have dinner and go to mass, in the evening. We were talking to this one Spaniard about that, and he says, we're just not used to in the U.S., the daily masses being at 8 o'clock in the evening. And he said, well, look at it this way. If we had mass at 5 o'clock, nobody'd go because everybody's still asleep.
Right.
And so at the end of those masses in the evenings, the priests sometimes will call the pilgrims forward because they know that you're there. They know, they'll give you a special blessing. And it's really cool because the townspeople know the route and they know that you're going there. So you got a backpack on. You're very obvious to point you out. But we found, like Ann and I would be walking through a town and we get lost, or just take a wrong turn, and you'd have a person on the street that will whistle at you and point you in the right direction because they know you're lost. So at the end of the route, you end up in Santiago at the Cathedral of St. James, and that's where St. James the Greater, brother of St. John the Evangelist, is buried beneath the altar. And so you go down underneath the altar, you venerate his tomb, and then you come up on the top, and there's a huge statue of St. James, and the custom is that you walk up behind the statue, you put your arms around it, and you hug James, and you say, I have arrived. It's just so cool. His feast day is this Friday, so it's going to take on some real, special meaning for us, I think, this year. So, some people do go back and do it over and over again. My wife once heard it said that at some point in our lives, every Catholic should try to do 3 pilgrimages to the Holy Land, to Rome, and to the Camino. And so, we've done Rome and Camino now. We haven't been to the Holy Land because that was scheduled for 2 years ago when all the fighting broke loose, so we're still waiting on that one. But the other beauty of it is while we were on the trip, we also went to Segovia and visited the tomb of St. John of the Cross. Wow. And we went to Avila and visited the relics of St. Teresa and her monastery. We were in Toledo, visited the tomb of St. Ursula. We were in Madrid, and we prayed at the tomb of St. Isidore. So it was really just a very deep experience to be able to do that, and things that, as a deacon, I can bring back and preach about forever. And I found that I preached last weekend, and I immediately brought a story from the Camino into that homily because that's exactly why this type of ongoing formation is so important, because it allows us to go deeper and to be able to reflect on those things. We do that. So I would definitely recommend that. But not everybody can get out of the country, and not everybody is able to walk like that, and that's perfectly understandable. And I would encourage our listeners, particularly during this Jubilee Year of Hope, as pilgrims of hope, to visit someplace, even on a local level. And I know our bishop has really emphasized going to a place like Bellevue's Sorrowful Mother Shrine, going down to Cary, or even visiting Rosary Cathedral, but at least getting out on some kind of a pilgrimage to acknowledge that we're in the middle of this Jubilee year.
Yeah, that's a very
Deacon
good point.
Dan, I want to bring this up real quick. If you and Ann find yourselves in New York City and someone is whistling, you're not on the Camino way. Don't react the same way. They're not trying to point you out to a different direction.
Yeah, that's the time to grab your wallet
at that point. Yeah, just walk more quickly. Love it, though. Love it. And love your thoughts on the Camino. I mean, again, everyone you talk to that is gone, 1, plans to go back, and 2, wants to take a bunch of people with them because of the blessing that it is. So thanks for sharing that.
I can't wait to hear your next homily where you bring that up. Deacon Dan Brahier, it's Daniel in the Deacon's Den here on Morning Offering. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.